Hi everyone, this is Jen Norix. I'm the campus shepherd at Devonair Community Church in Livonia. I am 1 week overdue for a haircut, so keep watching because I think over the next few weeks, I expect that this is going to get really interesting. Speaking of expectations, I wanted to talk a little bit about our expectations during Holy Week and our expectations beyond Holy Week. This Sunday is going to be Easter, and our expectations of what that will look like for us this year have changed pretty drastically. Easter's not canceled, but the Easter egg hunt is canceled. Worship services at our church are canceled. Time with extended family is canceled. And so whatever it is that you were expecting from Easter, that's probably undergone a transformation this past week. And I wanted to take time to talk about Joseph of Arimathea, the story of a man that we find intertwined with Jesus' story during Holy Week. And he's mentioned in all four of the Gospels, which I find is interesting. He was very significant. His part was small and yet meaningful. And rather than read one of those descriptions to you from the Gospel, I'm going to give you a summary because each Gospel gives us some various pieces of information, and I'd like to put it all together for you. If you want to look up Joseph of Arimathea and read his story, you can find him in Matthew 27, Mark 15, Luke 23, and John 19. I'll put that in the description in case you want to look that up later. But to summarize, Joseph of Arimathea was a wealthy man. Arimathea was a town about 20 miles from Jerusalem, where the events of Holy Week took place. Joseph was a member of the Sanhedrin, which was the Jewish legal and religious body that put Jesus on trial during Holy Week and decided to have him executed. One of the Gospels tells us that Joseph was not in agreement with the decision that the council made. Another Gospel tells us that everyone who was there was in agreement. So that suggests that perhaps he was not there for that meeting. Maybe he was traveling from his home that was 20 miles away. We don't know. But he was a follower of Jesus's. He was a disciple of Jesus's. And because he feared retribution from his peers and from his community, he secretly followed Jesus. And when he learned that Jesus had been executed, he went to the government officials, and the scriptures say he worked up his courage, he gathered up his courage to go to the government officials and request Jesus's body. And so once the government official confirmed that Jesus was in fact dead, he allowed Joseph to take Jesus's body. And Joseph had a brand new tomb that he had purchased. He and his colleague brought about 75 pounds worth of spices to prepare the body with. And that would be an amount that typically was used for a king. And so they took Jesus's body, placed it in this new tomb with this royal amount of spices, wrapped his body in a shroud, and pushed a stone in front of the tomb. And that's really all that we know about Joseph of Arimathea. He never resurfaces in the Gospels. But I think his story is important. One of the translations that I like to use sometimes, it's called The Message, translates Mark 15:44 this way. It describes Joseph, the disciple of Jesus, as one who lived expectantly on the lookout for the kingdom of God. Joseph was looking expectantly for the kingdom of God. And it makes me wonder, what is it that we expect? What are our expectations, not just for Easter, not just for Holy Week, but in life? What are our expectations? We all live in expectation of something, and it can be good or it can be bad. We can live in expectation of doom. We can live in expectation of things going awry. We can live in expectation that we're about to get screwed over. We can live in expectation that something new and good is around the corner. We can live in expectation that God is doing something. And I think Joseph kind of fell into that later camp. Joseph wouldn't have known what was about to happen on Easter. And one of the questions that came to my mind when I read about him was why he chose to come forward when he did. He had lived in fear of his peers finding out that he was a follower of Jesus. He had kept it a secret. And he came forward when Jesus had been killed. And he didn't know Easter was coming. And so to him, this didn't look like a win. If anything, this, I'm sure, felt like a deep loss. And I thought, hey, Joseph, Jesus's team appears at this point in the story to have lost. Your guy is dead. The person that you've been quietly following and tracking and being interested in, he's died. Why come forward now? Why put yourself at risk now? Why alienate your community and your peers now when it appears that your team has lost? I don't know the answer to that. But there were several things that came to my mind when I was thinking about it. One is that I kind of wonder if he lost faith in his institution, in his community, in the people that he thought were just and right, when they chose to unjustly execute someone with trumped up charges and false accusations. Joseph may have been disappointed in the people that he thought were supposed to be doing the right thing. And maybe he had just had enough. And this was the final straw, and he was ready to say goodbye and move on to something else. I also find it interesting that he recognized that there was something important about Jesus, despite the fact that Jesus had been executed, and as far as he knew, Jesus was permanently dead. But he knew that there was something compelling there. He knew that this person was worth honoring, that this person deserved better than being thrown into a pit with other criminals. This person deserved the treatment of a king, to be buried in a tomb with spices and wrapped in linen. A lot of scholars, when they focus on Joseph of Arimathea's story, talk about the fact that this story proves a number of fundamental Christian beliefs about Jesus, in fact, dying physically and being raised from the dead physically. And so scholars often chalk up his story to one that helps prove the case of Christianity. If that's your thing, to be interested in those types of arguments, go for it. That's great. God is more than able to meet our doubts and our questions and our skepticism. If you want to ask those questions and do some reading and research, that's great. But that's not what I want to focus on today. What I want to focus on today is Joseph, the person, and what must have been going through his mind, what was happening for him, that he decided to treat Jesus with honor and respect and give him a king's burial. He didn't know, as I've already said, he didn't know what was happening on Sunday. All he knew was that it was Friday. This one that he had had faith in was dead. And yet there was something about Jesus. He didn't know what was going to happen next. He didn't know what the next chapter would look like. But he knew that there was something compelling him to lean in closer, to find out more, to understand more about the kingdom of God, and to be one who lived expectantly on the lookout for the kingdom of God. And so this week, during Holy Week, what are you expecting? Have you been disappointed by people who have not done what you thought they would do? Are you living now as someone who is experiencing injustice at this moment? Whether it's related to your gender, to your race, to your financial situation, to any other thing where you're experiencing injustice. And maybe it's hard to see beyond that. But you're listening to this video. Somewhere you're feeling compelled to lean in a little closer and to know more about Jesus, to learn more about God, to learn more about what it looks like to live expectantly in the kingdom of God. This week, ask God to help you with your expectations. Be confident that one who seems sometimes to not be in control, who seems to be losing the race, losing the fight, losing to injustice, be on the lookout for the ways in which the kingdom of God is breaking through. Be on the lookout for the goodness of God. You may not know how it's all going to pan out, but you can do the next right thing, just like Joseph did the next right thing, which was preparing Jesus' body for burial. He did the next right thing, not knowing what the whole story was. And I hope that this week you will find the next right thing and do it. You may not know the end of the story, but Easter's coming.